Hi again. Today I'd like to talk about the FW3A flashlight. This is a flashlight that just recently came out about a month ago. It was actually in development for about 2 years. Quite a history there, I think. But it finally got done, and the overall result, I think, is pretty good. Now, this is a small 18650 flashlight. You can see this is an 18650 cell. It's not much bigger, really, than the 18650 cell. It's a little wider. I'll do a comparison of some other flashlights with it in a bit. But I'll just first describe the light. This is a electronic switch light, but the electronic switch is on the end of it, the tail, which is kind of unique for electronic switches. Usually they go on the side here somewhere. But this, for those of you that like a tail switch, but with the power and flexibility of an electronic switch, this is a neat alternative. Anyway, it's a triple emitter light. This one uses the Cree XPL high intensity emitters. This one uses a 7A tint, which is a warm white. It's around 3000 Kelvin, which is just around the same temperature as incandescent. It looks very close to incandescent light. That's why I wanted to get this light, because I only have one other light that's this warm, and I really like the tint of it. It's great for nighttime use for just sort of general mood lighting. Nice tint for that. Anyway, this is the package it comes in, the box it came in. It was in another box surrounding this, which was destroyed by the mail, but the inner box, it survived pretty well. When you open it up, you get some O-rings, a manual, and that's about it. It's well packaged. This is the most important thing. If you're only going to read one thing on this light, read this one. You insert the battery from the head of the light. This is different than most lights. Most lights you would unscrew the tail cap and insert the battery. And this one, that's the head, this is the body. In this one, you would insert the battery from the head, but you have to make sure the positive terminal of the battery goes towards the head. So it's a little bit different. Normally you insert the batteries the other way around. And so the reason why you don't ever insert the battery from the tail is if you take off the tail cap, all the guts of the lights fall out, which is, I think they did it so the light is quite moddable for flashlight enthusiasts. But for regular people, that's a really poor design. This really should be locked shut. So I think for most people, if you don't remember to always change from the head, put some Loctite on the threads of the tail and just twist it shut and leave it that way. And then you won't be accidentally opening up the tail and watching the switch all fall out. So let me just compare it before I actually go into the light itself. Let me just compare it to some other 1860 lights, and that'll give you an idea of the size of it. This is a BLF A6, which is a pretty common budget 18650 light. It's probably about 2 or 3 years old, the design, but it still holds up pretty well. It's a little large for everyday carry, I find, because it's a little large and heavy. This one is actually quite nice for everyday carry. This is a even larger 18650 light. This is the Astrolux S43, which is a quad emitter light. This one uses Nisha 219C emitters. This one uses the Cree emitters. They're around the same output, actually. In fact, they're around the same output. So this one achieves with just 3 emitters what this one is doing with 4. I think it's just because the Cree emitters are more efficient. Now, the lights I normally use for everyday carry are zebra lights, and they're a little more comparable in size. This one would be an SC600 style light, zebra light, and you can see it's just a little bigger than the FW3A. But this one is pocketable. I find it a little large for the pocket, but it's actually not too bad. If I need something with a little more throw, this is an SC600W high intensity, so it's got a little bit of throw for outdoor use. I generally carry it outdoors. This one here is rather I think this is the smallest zebra light offers in 18650 lights. This one is an SC64W high, or high intensity. And you can see they're almost exactly the same length. The FW3A is a little thicker, so the zebra light actually fits in a pocket more nicely because it's thin. And this one, it actually makes a very good everyday carry light. This one is close though, the FW3A, and considering it's, probably about 60% of the cost, it's almost half the cost really of the zebra light. You're getting a pretty good deal with this light. I do prefer the zebra lights though. Zebra light, I really like the user interface on it. They're much sturdier, I find. They seem better quality build. This one's not bad. I mean, the quality's not bad, other than removing the tail cap causes all the guts to fall out. The overall quality is pretty good. I wouldn't go throwing it around on concrete. I don't think it's like that robust. It is very thin, the metal, I find, which keeps it light and it keeps it, fairly compact. But, the overall quality is pretty good. It's comparable to most 18650 lights. And, I wouldn't have a problem just carrying this around for most use. If I want something more robust, though, I'd carry around a zebra light. So that's the overall size. Let's just take a look at the tint of this, and I'll just describe what I mean by the warm white. You can see here on the desk, it has quite a yellowish glow, almost orange yellow. It'll look, compared to say any other lights that you have, it will actually look quite yellow or make the other lights look quite blue. For instance, here is a neutral white zebra light here, and if I put it on next, you can see the zebra light. Now this doesn't show up too well in the video because the desk is so brown. Let me actually bring over a white piece of paper. That'll make it a little bit more clear. You can see this one's quite a bit more yellowish than the neutral white zebra light. And if I look at it with something like a 5000K light like the Astrolux S43, you can see the Astrolux is actually quite a bit cooler. But it's a fairly neutral light too. This one is warm though. And I find that's nice for general purpose use in the evening. It makes for a nice pleasant light. Okay, let's talk about the interface for this light. Here it is. This is in the manual too. I printed out a larger version of it. As you can see, it has a lot of functions to it. It is this uses the Android UI, and it is fairly complex, the programming of it. Not as complex as the Narsil user interface that, say, the Astrolux S43 uses, but far more complex than, say, a zebra light uses. So you do need to have this manual available while you're programming the light, at least for the functions that you don't use very often. But the basic interface here is described by, say, clicking from off. The normal interface here, and I'll just describe it here, it has a ramping interface. So if you just click the light once, it puts it into mode memory, which again you can define whether you want mode memory on or off. But generally you put the light on, you press and hold to ramp up, or press and hold to ramp down, and it'll eventually go down to as low as moonlight. And the normal ramp here will go up to probably around, 700 or 800 lumens for the ramp. And if you double click, it goes into turbo, and this goes up to over 2000 lumens. So it's quite bright on turbo, but because of the size of the light, I can already feel it heating up, and it'll soon start ramping down. The light does not have enough mass to hold turbo for very long. And a single click to turn off. Now, again, it'll remember the last mode, so single click on, single click off. If you double click, it'll go to the highest ramping mode, which, like I said, is around 700 or 800 lumens. And if you triple click from off, you go in, and I'll just show you here, you'll go into one of the blinkies set here. So here we can see it's gone into a battery check mode, and it blinks out the battery voltage. In this case, it probably blinked out 3.9. Now, if you double click, you go into the sunset mode. Now, this is actually why I bought the light. I bought the light for the sunset mode, and I'm a little disappointed in it, but I think it's functional. Basically, the light goes into this mode where it'll start in a low level here, and over the period of an hour, it will gradually dim down to moonlight and then shut off. Now, the only reason why I'm disappointed is because the level that it starts at is fairly low. I would have liked that to be settable like it is for most of the other modes. You can set the initial brightness. It would have been nice to sort of set the initial brightness to something brighter if you wanted it, and maybe also have a configuration for how long you wanted the light to go on. And you'll see under a candle mode, they have that functionality, but they don't for the sunset. I think it was a feature that was kind of implemented partially and not really followed up on, where most of the development mode went into the candle. And then from there, another double click puts you into a beacon mode. And again, you can, from here, you can set the beacon mode to be however many intervals per second you want. And another double click here goes into a temperature check mode, and this blinks out the current temperature. One of the things you should watch about this light is the temperature is not set properly when you get the light. So when you're into temperature check here, you'll probably want to go into the thermal configuration and set the temperature to your room temperature here. And basically, once you're in the temperature check here, you click 4 times, and that puts you into thermal configuration. And then you'll see, well, I'll just show you here. So click 3 times, go into sunset, go into beacon, go into temperature check. Okay, now we're into the temperature check, and if I click 4 times, it puts you into a configuration mode. And while it's doing this spazzy thing here, now I missed it, but while it's doing this spazzy flashing here, you would then click the amount of times that your room temperature is. Now this is after you let the light cool down for a bit. So you click, say, I don't know, 20 times if your room is 20 degrees Celsius. And that'll set the temperature configuration accurately, which you definitely want, because if you don't have it set accurately, the thermal controls will end up ramping your light down too soon, or it just won't work right in some of the modes. So that's one thing you should do when you get the light. Mine was actually configured correctly. I don't know if they are starting to configure them now from the factory. I did get mine just recently, and whether just the initial ones weren't configured, but I have heard on the forums that it isn't set. So something to check when you get your light. Check that. Also, make sure you never open the tail. And those are the 2 important things that you would notice. Now, let's go into the quadruple click, and this locks out the light, which is very important. Now the light is locked out, and if I just press it, all I'll get is a moonlight. And I can't do anything else with the light. I don't think it unlocks with 4 clicks. Oh, yes, it does. It unlocks with 4 clicks as well. And then goes back to the normal center ramping interface. So lock out the light if you're carrying it in a bag or something. You don't want these high-powered lights to just turn on accidentally into some high mode and then have it end up burning through your knapsack or something. There's another interface here for momentary mode, and this is actually kind of nice. I like this momentary mode in throwers because I want to basically just hold down the switch for however long I want the light to be on. And after that, when you release the switch, the light turns off. So 5 clicks. Now it's in a momentary mode. And whenever I press the switch, it turns on. And it actually uses whatever memorized mode here you had. So unfortunately now you can't get out of it. That's clicking 5 times, but it just momentarily turns the light on 5 times. So you have to break the connection to the switch. You just release the head a little bit, put it back in. Oh, okay, you have to actually release the power to the entire light. If you just twist the head a little bit, it stops power to the switch. You can see it no longer works, but the control circuit is still active. So you have to actually take the head off to kill momentary mode and screw it back down. And now momentary mode should be canceled. There we go. And finally, there's a mode here called Muggle mode, and this is just for a simplified user interface. Click 6 times. And now the light will work kind of similar to what the normal ramping mode is, but you have a limited high mode. It'll only go up to here, which is, I don't know, maybe 100 or 200 lumens. It's just meant for people that, so it doesn't overheat the light. And the low mode doesn't go quite down to the moonlight. So it's kind of a intermediate mode, and you don't have any access to the triple clicks. If you triple click, it just doesn't do anything. So it's a very simple mode. Some people might want that. I don't really find it that useful, so 6 clicks to get out of it. And now we're back to this kind of the normal mode. Okay, finally I'll go through some strobes here. There's strobes and kind of other, fancy stuff. So this you access with a click, click, hold. Instead of the triple click, which gets you into this kind of blinkies, a click, click, hold, which is kind of a triple click with a hold at the last bit, will put you into this set of blinkies. Like I said, it's not that intuitive, but it's functional. So there we go. Now the first thing it'll go to is whatever you were using last. In this case, it's a candle mode. And this is supposed to simulate a candle. The light basically just sort of flickers. You can configure it brighter or dimmer, and you can set how long you want the candle mode to work before going out. But basically it just kind of flickers away, simulating a candle. I personally find it flickers too much. It doesn't really look like a candle to me. It looks more like a fire. I guess if I turned up the brightness, it might look like a fire or something. But it's really what I wished sunset mode was. If it was just a constant brightness and would slowly dim, that would be perfect for the kind of adjustable brightness and adjustable time you have for candle mode. That would be perfect for the sunset. And then double click puts you into a bike flasher mode, which is just the constant output with a flash up to a higher mode. Another double click, you got a party strobe, and you can again adjust how quickly this thing flashes, but basically it's just a strobe. You can then adjust the frequency of it to whatever you want. Another is a tactical strobe. This is just the annoying one that nobody should ever use. And finally, there's a lightning storm mode, which is very similar to candle, I find, but it kind of goes from off to sudden bursts of maximum output, or close to maximum output, which is supposed to simulate lightning. Beam profile of the light. Being a multi-emitter light with a very shallow setting here, the optic here is also slightly frosted. So it has a very floody beam. And I'll just compare it here to, say, a Zebralight SC64, which has kind of a more traditional beam, mostly flood, but a little bit of throw. And you can, let me just adjust those so you can see. This is the FW3A on the right, and the Zebralight is on the left. And you can see the Zebralight, its hotspot is, well, it's much more defined, and it's about half or a third of the size. So you will get a very floody beam out of this. Doesn't make it very useful for outdoors, in my opinion. It does get very bright on turbo mode, but only for like 10 or 15 seconds. So it's not really a light you can use a lot for seeing anything in the distance outdoors, but it's fine for close-up work outdoors. So overall impressions, it's a very nice light, especially for the price. I think this one, it was around $38, something like that. I think the regular price, that was a group buy option. I think the regular price is $50. There'll be coupons to bring that price down to sort of the $40 mark, I'm sure. At that price, I think it's a pretty good deal. At $50 full price, I'm not sure. You're getting up to close to sort of the Zebralight kind of prices at that point. And I think the Zebralight offers much better quality for that. But at $40, which is about half the price of a Zebralight, it's a really good deal, I think. Especially since you can get this nice warm white tint, which you can't in the Zebralights. The negatives, I would say, bad tail design. I think at some point the manufacturer, which is Lumentop, will probably end up making those threads locked. I would hope so anyway, because that's not a good solution the way they have now. And you do have to configure the light, at least the temperature setting of the light. That's another thing you have to configure when you get it, or you'll probably end up saying, hey, why doesn't these modes work? I turn the light on and it almost immediately drops in output and it doesn't seem to work right. If you're getting that, then you should adjust the temperature setting. And the other final thing is, and the only reason why you would ever open up the tail cap, is sometimes if you're finding the button, it's not working right, it's maybe shutting off accidentally, you're getting some weird behavior from it. There's an inner tube inside the light that needs to make contact with the driver's side head. And sometimes if you, especially when you first get the light, it may not be making proper contact. The way you fix that is to remove the head, loosen the tail a bit, and then tighten down the tail as hard as you can. And that'll push the inside tube, which I'll just show you here. You can see that little black lip here, that's an inside tube. The end of it has to make contact with the driver board here. And so that'll sort of push that tube up a little bit out of the body, and then you can tighten down the head normally, and that will make proper contact, and your light should work well after that. That's about the only other, you should only have to do that once, but keep that in mind. If your light is acting funny, that might be another reason, another thing to check. Okay, thanks for watching.